Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Move-In Day webinar. My name is Andrew, and before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that today I'm presenting from the UBC Point Grey, Vancouver campus, which is situated on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Hunkaminam-speaking Musqueam people. Thanks again for joining today's webinar. We're excited to have all of you, the students, with us today so that we can share some important information about Move-In Day. If it's helpful to you, you're able to turn on the closed captions function, which is located in the Zoom toolbar. In addition, a few housekeeping notes about today's webinar. We're going to be using the Q&A function at the end of the webinar to answer any questions you have that we haven't answered during the webinar. So what that means is for the next 40 to 45 minutes, I'm going to be speaking, and then we'll take a 10-minute break. And during that time, you're welcome to drop any question you have in the Q&A, and we'll come back together and do our best to answer live any questions that any of you have. If you're having technical issues, please feel free to use the chat to speak with one of our co-hosts or panelists, and they'll do their best to help support you through those technical issues. But again, for the next 40 to 45 minutes, I'm going to share some information related to UBC's Move-In Day. We'll take a 10-minute break at the end of that for folks to share any questions that you have in the Q&A. And at that time, we'll come back together to do our best to answer live any questions that you have. Excellent. So before we begin, my name is Andrew. I'm one of the associate directors with the student housing team here at UBC. I've worked at UBC for 8 years now and broadly in the student housing field for the last 13 years. I'm also joined today by a number of other panelists that are going to do their best to help answer your questions. I have my colleagues Anna and Michael from our residence assignments team, Jillian, Lindsay, Megan, and Eli from our student strategic initiatives team, as well as Jackie from our marketing and communications team. So lots of folks here from UBC to make this webinar as smooth and informative as possible. Let's start off, though, by sharing some fun facts about UBC. UBC has the largest student residence population in Canada, and that's by approximately double. So we operate a very large student operation here, a student housing operation here on campus. In fact, we're within the top 10 largest student housing operations in North America. On the Vancouver campus, we currently have 14,000 students living in residence, and in the next 5 years, we're actually adding an additional 1,500 beds. And so we operate quite largely and are still growing. Almost 40% of the students that live in residence on the Vancouver campus are international students, and on Move-In Day, we have over 1,000 volunteers and staff present to help us out. So those are some fun facts about the campus. Before we begin, I want to note that Move-In Day in particular is a day that's filled with lots of emotions. It can be a fun and exciting day. It can also be a day where there's nerves involved, and we recognize that. And so part of what we're trying to do here at UBC is to make your Move-In Day as exciting and comfortable and smooth as possible. And so that's one of the reasons we have the webinar. It's our way in advance to share as much information as we can so you know specifically what's required of you before and when you arrive on campus. Move-In Day is also a busy day. Over the 2 Move-In Days, Jumpstart Move-In Day and Winter Session Move-In Day, over 7,000 students move into campus. So what are we going to talk about today? First, we'll talk about some logistics or administration related to Move-In Day. And so what's expected of you before you arrive on campus. Then we'll talk a little bit about Jumpstart specifically. So what is the Jumpstart program? Hopefully many of you have already registered. Then we'll talk about Move-In Day, so both Jumpstart and Winter Session Residence Move-In Day. We have a central check-in process that we'll talk about. We'll talk about unloading at your residence area and what you can do for the rest of the day, as well as some final steps. But today specifically, we're going to do our best to focus on the logistics specifically related to move-in. Okay, first and foremost, we want to remind everyone that if you aren't doing this already, please make sure to be regularly checking your emails. Your email is the way that our student residence team communicates with you before and after you arrive to residence. And so it's really important in the coming months that you're paying attention to your email so that you can get any information from us related to moving in as quickly as possible. Your email you should be receiving emails, forgive me, from our residence assignments team at information@housing.ubc.ca. And of course, you hopefully know this already, but generic housing offers have already gone out. And in a few weeks, in early to mid-August, you'll receive an updated housing offer with your specific residence and room assignment. So please keep an eye on your emails. In addition to your housing offer, there's other information that we share over email. So for example, room type, meal plan information, pre-arrival checklists, what to expect on move-in day and more. So again, please make sure that you're checking your emails frequently. Now that you've been accepted to residence, there's some important steps as it relates to move-in. We have two main move-in days that take place in September this year. Our first is the Jumpstart move-in day. So if you've registered for Jumpstart, your move-in day will be specifically Tuesday, September 1st. And if you're not participating in Jumpstart, your move-in day will be on Saturday, September 5th. We often get a question at this point in the webinar related to campus tours or seeing spaces in residence. I just wanted to note for everyone that it's not possible to come to campus and see your specific room before you move in. However, on our website, we do have fantastic 360-degree room tours that are available for you to take a look at what your residence room will look like. In addition, we also have designated campus tours on campus. So if you are located near campus and would like to participate in a campus tour, you can register by going to their website. We also get a question often around, do you need to move in on move-in day specifically? And the answer to that is no. Residents are not required to move in on move-in day. However, and you'll see this through the rest of our presentation, there are a lot of resources available in residence on move-in day. And so if you are able to arrive during the designated time on move-in day, that's the best time to arrive to campus. Okay, I'm going to pause this for 1 second and just note for everyone on the call, in case you're just joining us, we're going to be using the Q&A function for any questions that you have today. So when I'm done presenting this content in about 30 to 35 minutes, we'll take a 10-minute break and we'll come back together to answer as many questions as possible live. And I'm sharing that because I'm noticing a lot of raised hands, but we're going to keep going through the content for the next 30 minutes or so. However, if you are experiencing technical difficulties, please connect with one of our panelists via the chat. Thank you so much. Okay, Jumpstart. If you've registered for Jumpstart, and we hope you have, Jumpstart is UBC's multi-day orientation program, and it's designed to give you a first look at university life. It's an opportunity to make new friends, explore campus, connect with faculty, and set yourself up for academic success before classes begin. And because Jumpstart is an orientation program, what that means is anyone who's registered for Jumpstart is able to move into residence a little earlier. So again, if you are participating in Jumpstart, your move-in day will be Tuesday, September 1st. And if you're not participating in Jumpstart, your move-in day will be Saturday, September 5th. Jumpstart registration did close on July 9th, and so we hope that many of you were able to register. If you haven't registered for Jumpstart and are interested in participating in Jumpstart, out to the Jumpstart team. We encourage you to do so as soon as possible. There are no guarantees whether you'll be able to be registered, but by reaching out as soon as possible, you'll increase your chance of potentially being invited to participate. So again, if you haven't registered for Jumpstart but want to participate, reach out to that team as soon as possible. If you didn't sign up for Jumpstart, as I mentioned, your move-in day will be the Saturday of Labor Day long weekend, so that's Saturday, September 5th. And you are welcome to move in anytime, and we'll go into the details of this later, but anytime after that date as well. So to reiterate, you're not required to arrive on move-in day, but we hope that you arrive during the designated times on move-in day so that you can have the support of all of our staff and volunteers that are present during the day. Okay. If you haven't yet had the opportunity, for all of you on the call today, we really encourage you to check out our winter session residence guide. You can visit that by scanning the QR code on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, or typing in the URL that you see in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. The Winter Session Residence Guide is a one-stop shop with tons of information about living in residence that we simply won't be able to get to today. So for example, it has a pre-arrival checklist. So for example, what do I need to pack in order to live in residence? What things are provided in residence versus what's not provided? There's lots of virtual tours so that you can see what all the spaces in residence look like. There's information there for your parents, guardians, and chosen families. And so if you're wanting to share information with any of those folks, there's a lot of good information there in the guide and much more. So please check out that guide if you haven't already. That's where we'll also link you to in our future emails when we send information about move-in day. We wanted to take this opportunity to note how important your UBC card is. If you haven't yet heard about a UBC card, and I hope that you already have, but if you haven't, your UBC card is your identity on campus. And so you use your UBC card to, for example, access various buildings, to access services at the library. If you're living in one of Totem Park, Orchard Commons, or Place Vanier, to swipe to eat meals in the residence dining hall, and in some residence areas to enter secure spaces. And so it's very, very important that you apply in advance for your UBC card so that you can have that available to you. And so with that being said, we wanted to note that if you haven't yet already applied for your UBC card, you should do that as soon as possible. And you can do that by visiting ubccard.ubc.ca. The deadline to apply for your UBC card is August 18th. And so it's very, very important that you do that so that we can ensure that your UBC card is ready to go in your residence check-in package. We want to make sure that you're set up for success to, for example, smoothly eat dinner on your first night in residence, to be able to enter your building if you leave after hours, etc. So it's very, very important that if you haven't already, that you visit the website you see there on your screen and apply to your UBC card no later than August 18th. When you do visit that website to apply, just as a heads up, you'll be prompted to upload a picture. And so it'll be helpful to think in advance what picture you'll use. There are some guidelines on the website, but for example, usually a white background is helpful when uploading a headshot for the UBC card. Your UBC card is also required for you to access your UPass. Your UPass is a BC program which provides you unlimited bus, C-Bus, SkyTrain, and Canada Line transit services within Metro Vancouver, as well as discounts on the West Coast Express. And so many students, for example, find it helpful to use their UPass to be able to leave campus, to explore what Vancouver has to offer. And all of that is free and at your fingertips, so as long as you have your UBC card. And so if not for anything else, this is a really good reason to make sure you've applied to your UBC card no later than August 18th. I know I've mentioned it already, but I really want to emphasize for this group how important it is to check your emails over the summer. As I mentioned, in a few weeks, so in early to mid-August, you'll receive an email from our residence assignments team where they'll share with you your specific residence assignment. A few days after receiving that email, you'll also receive an email from our team with specific information related to residence move-in day, including inviting you to select a move-in appointment. What we mean by that is on the residence move-in days, so on Jumpstart move-in day on Tuesday, September 1st, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., we have appointments available for students to specifically choose what time they'll be arriving to campus. And so those are in 15-minute increments. And so, for example, when you receive that email, you might select 10 a.m. as your arrival time. And so then you'll be expected to arrive to check in between 10 and 10:15 a.m. The reason we have appointments is it helps us make sure that traffic during the day is spread out and smooth as possible. And those appointment times fill up pretty quickly. And so it'll be really important in the coming weeks, in the day or two after you receive your specific residence assignment, to keep an eye out for that email, which will invite you to select that move-in time. I also wanted to clarify that the move-in appointment isn't necessarily how long it will take to move in. So for example, if you've chosen the 11 to 11:15 window as your move-in arrival time, what that means is we're expecting you to arrive to start the process sometime between 11 and 11:15. but it might mean that your overall move-in process takes you 45 minutes between the various parts that we'll talk about today. So the move-in appointment time is really the time that you're expected to arrive to initiate your check-in for residents. It's also at this point in the presentation last year that we had a handful of residence assignments related to questions. And while today's webinar is specifically about move-in day, I'll just take a few minutes to address just two questions that tend to come up quite a bit. The first is, are residence assignments grouped by faculty or program? The answer is no. So a number of variables go into how we place students like yourselves in residence. But at UBC Vancouver, there are no specific faculty or program clusters or floors in residence. The other question that we get a lot about residence assignments are, can you contact your roommate in advance? In other words, if you're placed in a room where more than one person lives in that room, are you able to reach out to that person in advance? In particular, in situations where you haven't indicated a preferred roommate? And the answer is yes, provided that they've agreed to that. So if both you and your roommate who you've not met before has indicated as part of your application that you're open to being contacted in advance of moving in, then you'll be able to do that. So that's a little information about residence assignments, but let's focus in on move-in day specifically today. Another area that we get a lot of questions about as it relates to move-in day is, what should you bring with you? What can't you bring with you? What can you bring with you? And so we wanted to draw your attention to the URL that you see here at the top left of your screen, which is the What Should I Pack page on our student residence website. First and foremost, we always encourage folks when you're moving into residence to pack as lightly as possible. And there's a few reasons for this. One, from a sustainability perspective, what we find is that when students pack a lot to bring with them to residence, there's a far higher likelihood that at the end of the academic year, when you're moving out, you're likely to leave things behind in either the trash or donation streams. And it does contribute to quite a fair amount of waste. And so usually the students that pack the lightest are the ones that have the least amount of trash at the end of the year. So from a sustainability perspective, we really encourage you to think about packing light. And if you're wondering as a sense of what does that mean, typically that means something like a shopping cart or two's worth of stuff. We know that doesn't sound like a lot, but what we find is because residence rooms are furnished, most students actually don't need to bring a lot with them when they move in. The other thing that I'll share is that on move-in day, we have a select number of carts available to sign out to help move belongings. However, we only have a certain number of carts. And so if you are arriving via a personal vehicle and you happen to have at home something like a cart or a wagon with wheels that would be helpful to move items, we do encourage you to bring that because that will be helpful to you, but it's not necessary. Other quick notes I would say is, if you're thinking about should I have a printer in residence, most students find that they don't need a personal printer in residence, and that's because in most of their first year residence areas, we do have printing stations where things can be printed during the year. Additionally, another question we get a lot is, should I bring a mini fridge with me to residence? Generally speaking, that's not necessary. Our residence dining halls are open from the early morning to late evening, and they're all access meal plans. So if you're living, for example, in Totem Park, Orchard Commons, or Place Vanier, you'll have an all access meal plan. And that means that generally speaking, you won't find yourself needing a mini fridge because the dining room can be accessed anytime you'd like during its opening hours, which again are from the early morning to late evening. There are some prohibited items, so it's helpful to take a look at the website. As I mentioned, rooms are fully furnished, so you're not needing to bring furnishings with you. So for example, there is a bed frame and mattress in the room, there is a desk and chair in your room, there is a wardrobe in your room. So generally speaking, you should not need to bring any furniture with you. In addition, all of our residences are Wi-Fi enabled, and so you shouldn't need to bring any cables or routers to access Wi-Fi, of course. And likewise, something that you should consider bringing, though, are light cleaning supplies. And so you do have an expectation as a student to keep your room tidy. And so you'll want to bring things like Clorox wipes or like a duster to help you take care of your space. Okay, arriving to campus. So as I mentioned, Jumpstart Move-In Day takes place this year on Tuesday, September 1st. So if you've registered for Jumpstart, that would be your designated move-in day. And winter session residence move-in day, so for folks who have not participated in Jumpstart, takes place on Saturday, September 5th. But both days are very similar in terms of the expectation of what takes place in residence. And so, if you, as we're going along for the next number of slides, I'll be speaking generally because these messages apply to both days. When you do arrive to campus, though, there are some important things you need to keep in mind. Number one, as I already mentioned, a few days after you receive your specific residence assignment in mid-August, you'll also receive an email inviting you to choose a move-in appointment time. It is important that if you're arriving on move-in day that you complete this so that you can select a time to arrive to campus, and then we'll know to expect you at that time. All students moving into Totem Park, Orchard Commons, Ritzu Mike and UBC House, Place Vanier, and Walter Gage residents will first arrive at a central check-in location when they arrive. And those are all of our first-year residences. So if you're a first-year student and you're on this call right now, please note that once you know your specific residence assignment, you'll also then be informed of which central check-in site you need to arrive to when you arrive to campus. And I'll get into this a little later, but all of those central check-in sites can be accessed via a personal vehicle, taxis, Ubers, public transportation, walking as an example. And so no matter what, if you're assigned to any first-year residence area, you'll be expected to first head to a central check-in site. Check-in on move-in day begins at 9 a.m. So for folks participating in Jumpstart, your move-in day process takes place between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. So your appointment time for move-in day will be between those two times at some point. And for folks not participating in Jumpstart, your move-in day appointment times are available between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. A few high-level notes as it relates to move-in day. Number one, it's critical that you bring a government-issued ID with you. And that's because the first thing that happens when you arrive to a central check-in site is for us to find your check-in package. And it's that official ID that we use to locate your check-in package. If you are arriving via personal vehicle, we please do ask that if you have friends or family joining you, that we leave all pets at home. So unless you have a service animal with you, please don't bring any pets with you on move-in day. We've noticed over the years that it's a gesture that families think are going to be nice, but it's also a really long and typically warm day on campus. And so pets are not helpful, in particular because unless it's a service animal, pets are also not allowed in residence. So it's important they stay home on move-in day. And if at all possible, try to arrive if you are arriving in a personal vehicle in a standard sized vehicle. Oversized vehicles can't fit within our parkades on campus, and so it just makes the day a little more challenging. Last but not least, traffic patterns are changed on move-in day. What I mean by that is there are many roads on campus that are either closed or turned into a one-way. And so if you're driving or you have a family member driving you or a friend driving you on move-in day, it's really important that before you arrive to the campus that you don't use a navigation app to navigate campus because the route that it gives you is probably not the helpful route. What would be most helpful is to use the instructions that we send in advance to email to you so that you know specifically what roads you should take in order to arrive to your central check-in site. We wanted to quickly note as well that there are many folks that help out on move-in days. You'll see on the screen here various shirts that are pictured. Top left, that light blue shirt, that's what our residence advisors wear. Residence advisors are the folks that will be in residence areas directing traffic. Top right, the darker blue shirt are the shirts that our check-in assistants wear. And so those are the folks that work in our central check-in sites that will check you into residence. Bottom left, that orange shirt, those are the shirts that our volunteers wear. We have hundreds of volunteers that are at residence areas that can help you move and unload luggage, as an example. And bottom right, that light blue shirt, that's the shirt that our facilities and front desk team wears. And so those are other folks within the residence area that are there to help out on move-in day. Okay, so I mentioned arriving to campus and a central move-in site. If you're interested now, you can take a look at that URL to see what in detail our arrival instructions look like for move-in day. But in short, after you receive in mid-August your specific residence room assignment, you'll come to know which residence area you've been placed in. And you'll notice at the bottom right-hand side of your screen that we have two central check-in sites. So for students who are moving into Place Vanier or Walter Gage, you'll arrive at the Flagpole Plaza for your central check-in. And for students who are ultimately placed in Orchard Commons, Ritsu-Mike UBC House, or Totem Park, you'll arrive at the Life Sciences Center for your central check-in. And we'll share that as well over email when you receive that information in a few weeks' time. Okay, I'll show you a brief overview, though, of what to expect at both central check-in locations. So again, the Life Sciences Center, what is pictured here on your screen, is for students that are moving into Totem Park, Orchard Commons, or Ritsu-Mike UBC House. And you can see there in the picture that we have a queue. One thing that I wanted to note is that sometimes when you arrive at the central check-in site, it will look like a long line. However, the line moves very quickly. We have about 30 check-in assistants that check students into residence at each central check-in site. And so what that means is every 5 minutes or so, we're checking 30 people into residence. And so it actually moves very quickly in person. It's just sometimes the line might look long because of how large our operation is. And so just to share with folks what this specifically means is, I'll use my laser pointer here. If you're arriving and you're arriving specifically to the Life Sciences Center to check in, if you're driving a personal vehicle, you'll be invited to park it in the Thunderbird Parkade, which is what I'm circling here with my laser pointer. And after you've parked your personal vehicle, then you'll follow a short little walk across the road to the Life Sciences Institute, where you'll check into residence. And so again, that's specifically for students who are moving into Orchard Commons, Totem Park, and Ritsu-Mike UBC House. The walk between the Thunderbird Parkade and Life Sciences Center also has a whole bunch of banners and balloons along the path, so it's very easy. And no worries if you're not arriving via a personal vehicle. If, for example, you're taking a taxi or Uber, you'll receive instructions in your email in a few weeks regarding where specifically to drop off for your taxi or Uber to drop you off at the Life Sciences site. One thing I did want to note about the parkade as it relates to vehicle clearance is that it's, again, built for standard vehicles. So it's helpful if your vehicle is less than 6 feet 10 inches or 2.8 meters tall. If you aren't able to find a vehicle that fits those dimensions, so again, is not a standard vehicle, is a tall vehicle, please reach out to move.in.day@ubc.ca well in advance so we can share some additional information from you. Also important to note, if you are arriving via, let's say, public transit or a taxi or an Uber, once you've arrived at the central check-in location and you've checked into a residence, then what you'll do is you'll hop on one of our complimentary shuttles, which will take you and your luggage to the residence area. And so something you don't need to worry about on move-in day is if you have lots of luggage, you don't need to worry about then walking that all the way to the residence. We have a complimentary shuttle that will help you with that. Likewise, if you've arrived via a personal vehicle, after you've finished checking in, you'll then walk back to your personal vehicle in Thunderbird Parkade, and you'll follow signage and drive your vehicle to the residence area to unload. This is the other central check-in site. So as a reminder again, Flagpole Plaza is specifically for students that are moving into Walter Gage or Place Vanier. Just like the other central check-in site, there's queuing and then check-in assistants that will check you into residence. And again, it's a line that moves quite quickly. One thing I want to note about this location in particular is that because it's in a tent and it's outside, we hope that the weather will be beautiful on campus, and it usually is on move-in day. But if by chance the weather is inclement and let's say it's raining, for example, it will be important to make sure that you dress for the occasion. And so if you are arriving to the Flagpole Plaza and it's a rainy day, please wear some rain gear so that you can be prepared to be outside for just a little bit of time. Okay, so this is another view. So if you're arriving via a personal vehicle to the Flagpole Plaza, you'll arrive first to the Rose Garden Parkade, which is located underground, right where I'm showing with the laser pointer right now. You'll park in that parkade underground and then walk above ground and just across the plaza here that I'm currently highlighting to this grassy area, and that's where the tent will be located. Very similar to the Life Sciences Institute, if you're arriving via public transit, taxi or Uber as an example, there will be a drop-off zone that's located above the Flagpole Plaza here. and we'll share more specific information over email. Again, just like the other parkade, if you are arriving via personal vehicle, please make sure that your personal vehicle is a standard height. In this parkade, that means less than 6 foot 5 inches or 1.95 meters. If by chance that doesn't work for you, please reach out to us in advance at move.in.day@ubc.ca so we can share some additional information. And just like the other site, if you are arriving via taxi, Uber, or other public transit, we will have complimentary shuttles. So again, no need to worry about how am I going to get between the central check-in site and my residence area. We'll have a complimentary shuttle where you can load your luggage and it will drive you over to your residence area when it's time to check in. Okay, so what happens at central check-in? At central check-in at both locations, it's where you receive your check-in package. And your check-in package is loaded with a whole bunch of information and resources that you need to then move into residence, which I'll get to in a second. But I do just want to remind all the students on the call today that, again, this is why it's really important that you have a photo government-issued ID with you. That's what our staff will use to find your check-in package so that we can then check you into residence. So when you come to central check-in, it's critical that you have your government-issued ID with you, please. Okay, so what's inside the check-in package? First and foremost, your keys. For some of you, that might mean hard physical keys or key cards that you see pictured on the screen, but nonetheless, your keys will be inside your check-in package. There'll also be a laundry card, and so that laundry card will be loaded with some funds for you to do laundry throughout the year. There will be a bookmark. This bookmark inside the check-in package is a QR code that links you to a page on our website where there are tutorials on how to use the different types of keys at the various residence areas. So for example, if you had a plastic key card, some of those plastic key cards need to be entered into a door and scanned and then require a PIN, for example. So on move-in day, once you arrive to your residence area, to your room to check in, you can then scan this QR code that was on the bookmark in your check-in package to be able to see specific instructions on how to actually get inside of your room. There will also be your UBC card, so as long as you've applied by August 18th. So again, this is my plug to you to please remember as soon as possible to apply for your UBC card. And I should also note the last thing that's not pictured here but will be inside of your check-in package is a contract card. And so that's the point in time when you'll sign, which it says that you agree to all the terms of living in residence. So that will also be in your check-in package. Also, inside your check-in package will be a color-coded parking pass. And so if you are arriving by a personal vehicle, what will happen is inside that check-in package, you'll have that color-coded parking pass, which corresponds to the specific zone that you'll inevitably arrive to unload your vehicle at your residence area. So a few things to note here that are really important. Number one is there's only one color-coded parking pass inside your check-in package. And so what that means is when you're arriving on move-in day, you need to arrive via a single vehicle. It's okay if you live locally and, for example, you're bringing a vehicle with you because you'll be keeping that vehicle on campus. And let's say you have a few family members that are coming to campus in a separate vehicle, but you can only use one vehicle to move into residence. And so you'll need to determine what vehicle you'll be putting the parking pass in to drive to the residence area. So what you'll do is when you receive the parking pass, you'll then hang it from your rear view mirror so that as you drive up to your residence area, our staff can visually see as you're driving up which colored zone and which number they're sending you to. One other thing to note with the parking passes is inside your check-in package, you'll also have a piece of paper that looks like the one pictured here on the screen that says getting to your residence. And there are two ways that you can navigate from the central check-in location to the residence area. One is between central check-in locations and residences, we have different colored signs with different symbols, and you can follow those to specifically get to where you need to get to on campus. So you can see here on the screen as an example, if you were traveling from the Rose Garden Parkade to Place Vanier, you would follow the light blue signs that have circles on them. And if you did that, it would get you exactly where you needed to go. If for whatever reason, following these signs presents a challenge for you, You can also scan the QR code that's on that piece of paper, and that QR code will load on your mobile device a specific set of instructions or a specific route, custom route to drive to your residence area. So that's a little bit about parking on Residence Move-In Day. You'll see here pictured on the screen that we'll have the pictures of some moving carts. These are the carts that I referred to earlier that are available at our residence locations on move-in day. We do have a limited supply, but if there are some available, you can sign them out with government ID on move-in day at your residence area. Again, as I mentioned, though, if you have your own moving carts at home, it's also sometimes helpful if you are arriving via personal vehicle to also bring those with you, knowing that we have a limited supply of carts on campus. As a pro tip, a few things to keep in mind. One is when you arrive to your residence area, whether you're arriving in a personal vehicle or on the complimentary shuttles that I mentioned earlier, residence advisors will be there to direct you where to go. It's really helpful when you check in that you also take note of the building name that you're placed in. And I'm going to show a picture to share what I mean by that. So you can see here, just use my laser pointer. You can see here, this entire map is of Totem Park, which is one of the first-year residence areas. And within Totem Park, there are a whole bunch of individual buildings, and each of those buildings has their own name. So for example, you can see number 3 here, which is Cullihan House. Students live in Cullihan House. And so when you get your check-in package, let's say you were assigned to Cullihan House, it would be helpful to remember that as you're driving up or taking the shuttle to your residence area, so that as you get close, if a staff member asks you what building you're going to be moving into, you can say specifically what building you'll be moving into. So again, your check-in package will have the name of your residence area, which is a collection of buildings, in addition to the name of the specific building that you're moving into. Okay, a few other notes. When you do arrive to your residence area, if you have a vehicle, you'll have about 15 minutes to unload. I know that doesn't sound long, but one pro tip that I'll offer is we have hundreds of volunteers that are present on move-in day to help you unload and move belongings. And so we generally speaking find that most people can unload their vehicles in about 15 minutes. Likewise, if you've arrived via taxi, Uber, or other public transportation, you can take one of the complimentary shuttles that will drop you off at your residence area. And there will be some volunteers with carts that would be located at that shuttle location to also help you move your belongings to your specific residence area. Yes, great. After that, then you'll be going to your room, unpacking your belongings, and hopefully then getting a chance to meet some of your roommates or neighbors who you'll be living with for the rest of the year. The hard work is done at this point. After unloading, if you do have a personal vehicle, at that point, you can drive your personal vehicle to one of the designated parkades on the campus, and we'll give you that information on the day where there's free parking through the remainder of the evening. So for example, if you have friends or family members joining you to help you unpack, they can help you move that vehicle to the designated parkade and then come back to your room to help you unpack. We also encourage you, if you haven't had the chance, to check out the official UBC store on campus. That's a good thing you can do on that day to see things that they have for sale for students in residence. And last but not least, if you have the opportunity, considering bringing folks who are with you to the dining hall for a meal, perhaps eating lunch together on your move-in day, if you're able to. If you do find that when you arrive, you're missing any of your items, so for example, perhaps you forgot to pack a fan, perhaps you forgot to pack a kettle or some other essential item, our official UBC store, the bookstore, will have shops set up in every single residence area. And so you can visit their pop-up store and purchase any of those essential items. So what you see pictured here on the screen is an example of what that looks like. And they'll be set up in Totem Park, Place Vanier, Orchard Commons, and Walter Gage. So lots of options very close by for you to purchase last-minute items on move-in day. One important note that we wanted to make here is if you are planning to send something to yourself in advance via the mail to pick up in your residence after you've moved in, it's really important that you are confident that whatever you're sending to yourself arrives on or after move-in day. Our residence front desks in the different residences will not accept packages that arrive before someone has checked into residence. And so it's really important that if you're sending yourself items, that it has to arrive on or after move-in day. The other thing I'll note here is that we do have a central campus mail that processes items. What that means is between our central campus mail and the time it takes for our colleagues at our front desk to process items, is that sometimes, even though something has arrived to campus on a particular day, it may not be available for a day or two for you to pick up at your residence front desk. So in other words, you shouldn't be sending anything that you're intending to arrive on move-in day and be available to you the same day. So, for example, if you're not able to pack your linens, your bed sheets with you when you're arriving to residence, the safest thing to do would be to purchase those from the pop-up shop at our bookstore so that you can guarantee that you have them that night in order to settle in your residence room. So it's really important to note. Okay. As I mentioned, the official UBC store, our bookstore, are our colleagues who are going to be operating those pop-up shops in the residences. You can head anytime, though, to their website if you're interested to see some of the things that they have for sale. So you can see the link at the bottom of your screen there. And if you navigate to the category of residence supplies, you'll see some of those items that they have for sale. And you can also visit them on campus where, of course, in person, they have more selection than they're able to offer at the pop-up stores in the residences. Other things to note before you check in, Totem Park, Place Vanier, and Orchard Commons, as I mentioned, have on-site dining halls. What that means is on move-in day during lunch, for example, if you and anyone with you would like to grab a bite to eat, they can certainly join you for a small price in order to be able to experience the dining hall. I'll also note here, if you are a student that's arriving to campus with a vehicle that you're planning to keep with you on campus, it's really important that you look up UBC parking services prior to your arrival so that you can purchase the appropriate parking pass before you arrive to campus. And lastly, we hope that you're all excited to move into residence in just over a month's time. It's a really exciting time of your university experience. And while we acknowledge that there's sometimes nerves associated with that process, there's also a lot of really good things that come from it. So we look forward to seeing all of you soon and have a great remainder of your summer. Thanks so much for joining us today.